Objection. Do I have a second to approve the agenda for today's?
Second.
All right, I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? All right, the agenda has passed. Thank you all for being here today. I just want to thank a few people for making this happen, all the volunteers. I want to thank Chuck Lee. He's not here today. He has another obligation, but he will be here. I want to also thank Sifeng Wu for helping set this event and finding this venue. I also want to thank the King Lee Adult Center owners. They were able to provide us this venue for free. So if you're looking for a GOP, so for those in CD4, if you guys want to have a convention or a meeting, this is the best place. We have the mics, the kitchen, and 4 bathrooms. So before we continue with the business portion of the convention, it's proper to have a temporary parliamentary secretary and chair, and I will introduce them. Xavier Bickett for parliamentary, Mike Nui for temporary secretary, and Nathan Raddatz as our temporary chair. I move that we have all 3 persons in these positions. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Nathan Raddatz.
Before we continue with item 9 on the agenda, and also number 8, we'd like to welcome Kayla King forward for a preliminary credential report. Is Kayla here? We will skip that for now. We'll actually have Gelly Miss do that on behalf of Kayla.
My job is simple. We have 33 voting members here today.
Before we move on with item 9, we'll welcome forth a number of speakers. We've selected them. If there's some that I happen to miss, or Robert Yang has happened to miss, please, by all means, come to the front table and speak to Mike Mui or Robert. We do want to recognize all those here that would like to speak. First of all, we'd like to bring forward Ms. Jennifer Carnahan Hagedorn. She's a current Minnesota GOP chair. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening, everybody. It's wonderful to be here. First, before I get into things, I just want to give a special acknowledgement to Robert Yang, who has led the Asian American Republicans over the past 2 years. I first had the opportunity to meet Robert in 2016 when we were both delegates to the RMC convention in Cleveland, and we bonded right away. And it's been so wonderful to watch his career grow and flourish. And for those of you who are not aware, Robert was an intern for the White House last fall and was picked out of thousands of people to go out and do great work for the Office of Political Affairs on behalf of our president, and we are so proud of him that he had that opportunity. And Robert, we just applaud everything that you have done for us. I also just want to acknowledge a couple of senators in the room with us today, Senators Pratt and Chamberlain. They've been big advocates of standing up for our diverse communities in the Asian group as well in Minnesota. We appreciate everything you do at the Capitol to stand up for our conservative values, and thank you for being a part of this today. And also, I know he's speaking later, but we want to thank Doug Wardlow, who was our Attorney General candidate and did an incredible job running across the state of Minnesota this past election cycle and came very close. He received more votes than any Republican candidate in the history of the state that's ever run for Attorney General, and we appreciate having your leadership. So I just want to quickly share a little bit about my background and why being a part of the Asian community and being here with you today, and also as the first Asian chair of the Republican Party, is so meaningful. So I know that each of us has our own story for how we came to America and why this is now our home and a country we love. You know, my story is different from all of yours, but on the day I was born, I was abandoned on the back doorstep of a rural hospital in South Korea and basically left for nothing. Unfortunately for me, 5 months later, 2 loving parents from Minnesota adopted me, and that's how I made my way to Minnesota, and this has been my home since April of 1977. Actually, on April 15th, that will be the anniversary date of when I officially arrived in Minnesota. So, you know, everybody has a different story, but I came to Minnesota, I came to this country, I love this country, and being an American and being able to live the American dream is something that's been so important to me in my life, and I know we each have our own journeys and stories, and that's what makes our country so unique and special. And I just want to share one other quick story. My sister and brother are also adopted from Korea, and my sister married a young gentleman from Laos. They met in high school. His parents fled Laos during that war. They ran across the country barefoot when his mother was pregnant with my sister's husband, while bullets were shooting at their heads. They made their way to a refugee camp in Thailand and ultimately made their way to Minnesota, where they settled in Brooklyn Park. My brother-in-law, A, he's 40 years old. You know, he's the first one to ever go to college. He went to the University of Minnesota. He married my sister. They have 3 beautiful children, a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And his parents came here and lived the American dream and passed it down to him, my brother-in-law, who's living the American dream, and he's passed it down to now my nieces and nephews, who are also aspiring to live their dream. So the power of us believing in our country, standing behind people that want to come here and work and pass it forward to future generations is so meaningful. And I think that's why, especially with this community, it's so important to our state and everything that we're trying to do as a party. I had the chance 2 weeks ago to speak at a university, actually just down the street from here, and I spoke to a political science class. The class was a diverse mix of all ethnicities, both male and female, and I was there with the chair of the Minnesota DFL. And they started by asking us, what defines your party? Tell us about your party. And they let the Minnesota DFL chair go first, and the first thing out of his mouth was, we are the party that fights for the American dream. We stand up for everyone, no matter their race, their color, their gender, their religious background. And then he pointed a finger at me and said their party, which she leads, they don't like anybody that's not a white male and thinks exactly like them. And I thought, okay, do you realize like you're a white male and you're pointing at me? You know, so it was very interesting because it was about an hour discussion. But here's what was most inspiring. I walked out of that classroom thinking, well, I tried to stand up for us, I tried to share our values. I told people, if our party really was that, I would not be in our party, right? Because of my background and the things that I've stood up for in my life. After I left that class, over the next couple days, I had 3 of the students reach out to me. One of the students that reached out to me was an Asian student, and he wrote to me and said, I was so inspired by what you had to say. I'm not a Republican, but I appreciate you standing up for all of us Asians. I'm with you all the way, and when can we get together so I can learn more about your party? These are the kinds of opportunities that we have, and we don't even always know when they're going to exist. But if we keep getting out there, talking to people, championing our personal stories, our journeys, why we believe in this country, that is what inspires people to want to come on board and align with our values. And that is what we are trying to do each and every day as Republicans. I'll just close with this because I probably talked too long. But you know, focusing on the diverse communities is absolutely an important part of our values as Republicans because it allows us to reach out into different communities and grow our tent wider. And as we're gearing up for 2020, we have the president back on the ballot again. And I will say this, people all over the country, the Democrats, they call our president racist. They say horrible things about him. I've had the chance to meet President Trump 5 times, and he has been nothing but kind, considerate, and supportive to me. And it was a true honor that I found out several months ago that President Trump appointed me to his commission on Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. So I now have a voice with the president and his administration to stand up and represent all Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders all across this country. And that's huge for us here in Minnesota. So we will continue to work on that. bring more of a focus and resources into the state through my appointment on this commission and other opportunities we have in Washington and with the great leadership that we have here in the community. So we truly appreciate you being here. Thank you for being involved. Thank you for championing our values. And thank you for showing up and spreading your positive message and story every day. I hope you have a wonderful convention, and I'm overjoyed to be with you.
And it was my fault, but the speaker right after her, what is to be her husband. So I'd like to welcome Jim Hagedorn, who is our U.S. representative from Congressional District 1. Please welcome Jim.
Good. Well, what an honor to be with you today. Thank you for the opportunity. And yes, Robert, you've done a terrific job. We appreciate your leadership. And I think you've just heard from my wife. I don't need to try to articulate anything that she went over. You can tell what a fine public speaker she is and how much passion that she has for not just this affiliate of the Republican Party, but our entire party. No one works harder. Nobody's a better organizer. And I think she's done a great job of putting our party in a position where we can methodically rebuild it. And so I appreciate your consideration for her support when she comes up for re-election here in about a month. So, Jennifer, I'm going to try and follow here, but it'll be difficult. What's going on in Washington, we'll just give you a quick update in a second. But before we get into that, I also wanted to acknowledge some people here from the Republican Party that have been very helpful to Jennifer. Of course, our National Committee woman, Jenna Byaver. She does a terrific job. She's out there working very hard. You're at as many events as anybody. And then the one that they refer to as the sweetheart of the Republican Party, the Secretary, Barb Sutter. There she is. And it is so critically important. And by the way, Doug, you ran a great race, and you stood for what we believe. We really appreciate all the effort. And I know that you have a real strong upside in politics moving forward, and we're looking forward to that. Our senators, and Senators Pratt and Chamberlain, very important. And I tell you, for this reason, thank all the state senators in the Republican Party when you see them, because they are the firewall between you and a more socialist Minnesota. The firewall between you and losing your freedom and liberty here in Minnesota and making us less competitive in this region. We're already in trouble with Wisconsin, Iowa, North and South Dakota. But if Tim Walz had his way, we'd be in a much more world of hurt. So thank you, Senators, for what you're doing. Stand firm for us and keep fighting for what we believe. We really appreciate that. Real quickly in Washington, and I think we can look at this last election. Yeah, we had record turnout. Democrats had even more record turnout. It was kind of crazy. Some people think, let's look back at the last election and see how it's going to be moving forward. That's usually not the way it works. It's usually kind of sort of the opposite. And you see that the voters are already kind of tacking back. Because in Minnesota, in the Senate District 11, just south of Duluth, we won a special election right after the last election. The first time that we've held that seat in almost 50 years. So that's a big deal. In 3 or 4 other instances around the country, Republicans have taken back Democrat legislative seats. So you see, maybe the voters are starting to get it. They don't like the idea of Walz's ridiculousness and 100% renewable or taking over the medical care system here in Minnesota and things like that. But they're also seeing that at the national level. And at the national level, we have President Trump standing up for what we believe, laying out a very clear vision for the country, fighting for what we believe. And people like myself, Pete Stauber, Tom Emmer, the rest of them, and we're standing with him as reinforcements to do everything we can as part of being a coalition to help the president and maintain, moving forward as best we can and stopping the Democrats from doing harm to our country. And then, let's face it, this next election, we're going to have the clearest contrast in our nation's history. And it isn't just because we're out there giving our viewpoint of a strong military with secure borders, to make sure that we reform the government to keep things moving along, that we protect our God-given rights, the right to life, the right to keep and bear arms, the right to religious freedom. That's good, and we're doing the right thing. But the Democrats, they're making it a little bit easy for the voters to see the difference. What would the Republican Party have had to raise and spend on commercials to convince the American people that the Democrats truly are a socialist party, that the Democrats do want open borders, that the Democrats believe in fourth trimester abortions, that the Democrats want to do something like the Green New Deal and turn our economy upside down and destroy capitalism and free enterprise in America. I don't even know if we could have raised enough money and made the arguments, but 3 congresswomen on the Democrat side, Omar, I don't know if you've heard of her, right? Tlaib, and this AOC, they're doing it for free. They're going around telling everybody exactly what the socialist Democrats are all about. So when we come up to this next election, we're going to have a very strong state party. We're going to have activists like you on the ground. We're going to have candidates up and down the ballot to get the job done. We'll be fighting for our president, and he'll be fighting alongside us. And the Democrats will have exposed themselves and told the American people exactly what they want to do. And because of that contrast, because of us all working together, we're going to win in 2020. We're going to defend our country, make our state better. We're going to defend the American way. It's an honor to be with you today. Thank you.
Now, before we go on to the 4 speakers, if you saw the flyer, we're going to invite Becky Hall, who's also running for Minnesota GOP chair. Welcome, Becky Hall.
Good evening. Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here tonight. I'm honored to be in a room of so many freedom-loving patriots. You know, I was just thinking about I have cards here that I was going to read from, but I'm just going to talk to you. I put flyers on the table. You'll see a picture there of my family, and I was just thinking about my 5 kids who were born here in Minnesota, and we're always, as a family, talking about how blessed we are to live in this great country, that it's freedom that gives us strength and prosperity and goodness, and constantly talking to them about that. And you know, I think growing up in America, quite often we can take that for granted, and it's wonderful to have patriots like you that come from all walks of life, all experiences, that truly appreciate just how important America is and its freedoms. And you work with us and remind us in that fight for freedom how important it is. So I so appreciate all that you do for our Republican Party here in Minnesota. And I am running for the GOP chair. First and foremost, after the 2018 election, I don't know about you, but I was devastated. I expected and then realized that we could do much better than that. And after being encouraged by many to get in this race, I was honored by that. As a matter of fact, one of my biggest supporters should be Lieutenant Governor right now, Donna Bergstrom, who's with me tonight, and we owe you a load of gratitude as well. So many of you worked hard last year to fight for candidates like Donna and Mr. Wardlow, and our Senate candidates and all that. So appreciate the money you've raised, getting out there and door knocking, and everything you do. I come from Duluth. My husband is an orthopedic surgeon up there. We have our 5 kids. 2 have graduated from college. And I have to tell you, my oldest is named after the great President Ronald Reagan. His name is Reagan. And we have 2 that are in college now and 1 who is at home. And I think it's because of their future that's what fuels me to be involved in our fight for our conservative values. And you'll see that I have 30 years plus of experience working hard for our fight for freedom. Everything from knocking on doors to making the phone calls to being a candidate myself up in Duluth, which is tough, deep blue Duluth, but it doesn't keep me from fighting. And here's what I think we need as a leader for the state party, is a fighter. We need somebody who's not afraid to stand up to the left, who wants to push their liberal agenda on all of us Minnesotans. We don't believe in that. We need a state party leader with a voice who works together with folks like you who are out there in the trenches, knocking on those doors, raising the money, supporting our candidates, we need a party leader and others working with you together to fight for our conservative values. That is why I decided to get into this. I so appreciate what goes on around Minnesota as we fight for our candidates. In our congressional district, as was mentioned, we just elected Senator Rarick and Nathan Nelson to the House, but we also we worked together and we got Pete Stauber elected up there as our congressman. So I would like to take my energy, my enthusiasm. Another thing I love to do is work hard for our candidates and support them financially, help raise money. I know you guys are amazing at raising money too, and I just think that's really important for our party to retire our debt, and the sooner we can do that, those resources can go towards our conservative causes and our candidates statewide. So the two things I really want to do as your leader, and I would be honored to have your support and your vote. We get together at State Central on April 27th. I'd like for us as a whole, our state as a whole, our organizations like yours, our BPOU leadership, our elected leadership who's fighting for us at the Capitol, to come together and have a vision. And with that vision, we'll come together and have a strong message why we love freedom in this country and why we vote Republican. That's why I'm running, and I would be honored to have your support, and I could talk all night. Hopefully I can talk to you more importantly individually. If you have any questions, would love to chat with you. I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much.
Next, we'd like to continue again with those four that are on the flyer, beginning with Mr. Doug Wardlow, who ran for Minnesota Attorney General.
Thank you, Nathan, and thank you for your leadership here. And Nathan also helped quite a bit in the campaign. I'm sure the deputy campaign manager, so thank you, Nathan, and thank you to Robert, who helped a lot on my campaign as well. There's so many people in the room that I could thank, so I won't even begin to do so, but Sifang and so many others, thank you so much for all your support. And actually, my campaign manager is standing in the back there, Billy Grant. Everyone should give him a round of applause. Because he ran the best statewide campaign Minnesota has seen in at least a decade, if not longer than that. So we did pretty well. We didn't win. So I'm sorry for that. And I'm sorry that we have Keith Ellison as our Attorney General. That's a problem. But maybe we can rectify that in 4 years.
Yes.
Now, while we didn't win, we came very close, within 3.8%. So I just want to thank all of you, first of all, for all of your efforts, all of the work you did, the door knocking, the phone calling, the financial contributions. It was so valuable, and it helped us get that close, and it helped us build up a foundation of Republican voters that can come out to the polls in future elections and help us deliver victory. So that's very important. So thank you all so very much. Now, we came within 3.8% and got 1.15 million votes. And like Jennifer said, that actually is more than any other AG candidate has gotten in the history of the state, but it's also more than any other Republican candidate in a midterm election for any office has ever gotten in the history of the state. So that's a very good thing. That's a very good thing. We can build on that success going forward. We won 5 out of 8 congressional districts, and we raised and spent around $1 million, which is somewhere on the order of about 10 times what previous AG candidates on the Republican side, at least, have raised and spent in the race for Attorney General. So we have a lot to be proud of and a lot of accomplishments there, but we need to just do a few more things to make sure we win going forward. What we did do is I think we demonstrated that a conservative message that's based on the rule of law and fairness and freedom, those core principles, can work. We demonstrated that we don't need to run from our conservative principles in order to win elections. Now, we saw that the Democrats had a massive turnout, like Congressman Hagedorn. I like saying that, Congressman Hagedorn. Isn't that great? Like he pointed out, we have a lot of success. We need to build on that going forward. The fact of the matter is this. We need to make sure that Republican turnout can overcome what the Democrats did. We had, in CD5 alone, Democrat turnout was up 107,000 votes roughly over 4 years ago in the Attorney General's race. That's just one congressional district. One congressional district. To put that in perspective, that's about half the total turnout, as say CD8 or CD7 had this last time around. So the Democrats swamped us with those kinds of numbers. Turnout on our side was pretty good, but their turnout was just incredibly high. But by doubling down on our principles and by getting into those areas where we need more penetration, in particular, the city, the suburbs, and then minority communities. We just need to build bridges, keep building the relationships in those communities, in those areas, pour resources into those places. I think it's clear now that we can't win statewide elections just by focusing on rural Minnesota. There just aren't enough votes. There just aren't enough votes. The population of rural Minnesota makes up about 40% of the state, compared to 60% in the suburbs and urban area and the exurbs. So we can't ignore the metro area as Republicans any longer. The good news is that our principles work, and our message resonates even with folks in the heart of Minneapolis. You know, Minneapolis, the crime in Minneapolis is skyrocketing. We have neighborhoods that are falling apart. They are ready to receive a message about hope, about opportunity, and about growth. People are ready for that, and we can get in there and deliver that message. And when we do that, that's how we're going to win. We don't need to win Minneapolis. We don't need to win St. Paul. We just need to move the needle a little bit. If we can win, say, 30% of the votes or 35% of the votes instead of 10 to 20% of the votes, that would deliver a statewide victory. That's what we need to do. But I'm very optimistic for the future because, as Congressman Hagberg pointed out, the Democrats are doing some of the work for us. We need to expose the Democrats for the extremists that they are. And they're doing a lot of that themselves. With Congresswoman Omar, with AOC, Rashida Tlaib, they are doing a lot of the work for us. But I just caution all of you that we can't get too excited about this. Because what they're doing is they're putting out all these extreme proposals. All these ridiculous things that are socialist and terrible. And we can point at those things, we can laugh. I mean, the proposals are so ridiculous, like the Green New Deal. Even our terrible Senator, Tina Smith, voted present on that. You know, she wouldn't even vote, a lot of senators there didn't vote for their own progressive wings proposal. And that's pretty ridiculous. But what they're doing is they're moving the window of conversation, right? It's just like when I'm an attorney. When you're negotiating, say, a settlement. If you're on the plaintiff's side, let's say you want to settle for no less than $25 million, just throwing a number out there. Well, you start out the negotiation demanding, what, $50 million or $75 million, right? And then over the course of time, you come down to meet somewhere closer, hopefully, to where you want to end up. It's a very simple principle. And so initially, where the demand for $25 million might have been utterly absurd, by saying $75 million, suddenly $25 million doesn't sound absurd anymore. That's what the Democrats are doing. They're saying that we need to get rid of air travel. They're saying we do all these crazy things, and we may laugh at that. We may be able to paint them as extremists. But guess what? All those proposals that we think are terrible, that they've been pushing for a long time, suddenly the public will think that those things sound more reasonable. So that's what the danger is. We need to make sure that we are always standing up for our principles, always defending the Constitution, making sure that we don't give them any ground. We need to stand up for our own proposals and make sure that people understand that we are the party of freedom. We are the party of opportunity. We are the ones that are fighting for the ability of people to become what God means for them to be. That's what we're doing. The other side, they're for a modern-day form of servitude and slavery, and we need to make sure that they do not succeed because we are in the midst of a battle of ideas like none other we have seen before in our country. And I think over the course of the next, say, 3 election cycles, 6 years, will determine, how those elections go will determine whether this country is going to continue to grow and continue to be great, or whether we're going to give up on and set aside into the ash heap of history those things that have made this country great, like freedom of religion and free speech and rule of law. All those things that set America apart and allow us to have such blessed and prosperous lives. That's what hangs in the balance. That's why the next 3 cycles, I think, are so critically important. But we have a lot to be hopeful about. Because the Democrats, it is a good thing that they're being a little bit crazy. Because they're exposing themselves, they're showing their true colors, and they're opening an opportunity for us to jump in and engage in the debate. And that's what we need to do, stand up on our principles. We absolutely must not move to the middle, try to accommodate and try to win voters by watering down our message. That would be an enormous mistake. That would play right into their strategy. That would move the window of conversation to their side. That would lead us down the road to where we can't win elections statewide and we become a cold California. So we can't do that. But what we can do is focus on those areas of the state where we need to deliver our message and keep building those relationships and make sure that our message gets through. And that's what I'm going to do going forward. And I'm very excited about that. It gets a little bit annoying sometimes because you have to just keep repeating yourself over and over and over. You have to say the same 2 or 3 things like 70 times a day, right? And you need to stick on just message discipline. You have to repeat it over and over and over because if you don't, then that's when the press will get you. And by the way, I noticed something this past election, and this is kind of a secret I'll let you in on. The press here isn't very friendly to Republicans. It's not. So what we need to do is have message discipline like that across the whole party. From the top of the party to the bottom of the party, all activists, all leadership, all candidates need to sing from the same songbook and keep repeating those same few top-line talking points. Of course, you're going to have different messages to different groups of people. You're going to have different messages based on what kind of policies you're talking about, but in terms of the overarching themes, as a party, and we need to come together on this and unify around what the message is going to be and then hammer that home, repeating it over and over and over. And if everyone does that, then the press will have to repeat it once in a while. Once in a while. They won't repeat it all the time like they do for the Democrats. But then it will penetrate, at least to a certain extent, and that's the only way we can have any hope of winning. So we need to expose the Democrats for the extremists that they are. And that means we need to make sure people understand that Medicare for all, ridiculous proposal, Medicare for all, what that really means is quality care for no one, and private insurance for no one. And that's a winning message, because when you poll Americans, and you tell them that Medicare for all means no private health insurance, and you tell them that Medicare for all means tax increases and delays in health care, then over 70% of Americans oppose it. So that's what the message has to be there. The Green New Deal. We need to make sure people understand very clearly that it is not new, it's not green, it's just repackaged, job-killing, soul-crushing socialism. That's all it is. And a little bit of a bright spot on this one, and not only did a lot of Democrats vote present for it, but the founder of Greenpeace, you probably heard about a couple weeks ago, said that the Green New Deal, if it was implemented, would destroy civilization as we know it. That's the founder of Greenpeace. So that's how crazy this is, right? We can win on that message. We just need to make sure people understand what socialism is. We need to make sure people understand how it contrasts with the rule of law and with freedom. Because socialism, of course, as you all know, if you are going to control if the government is going to control the means of production, well, that means you can't have freedom. That means you can't have economic liberty or any other kind of liberty. You can't have religious freedom either, because that can interfere with the government's ability to control the means of production. So that's the path to tyranny. So we can't let that happen. There are so many other things we can talk about. Immigration. The Democrats apparently don't believe in borders at all. And we knew this about Keith Ellison, who during the last campaign said during an interview on YouTube, maybe it was even before the campaign, that he doesn't believe in borders because he thinks they create an injustice. Just having a border, he said, creates an injustice. So apparently, to Keith Ellison, justice means that you cannot, to have justice, you can't protect what you have. You cannot protect what you have from folks that would come and break the law to partake in it. And that's just wrong. That's a wrong-headed view. So we need to make sure people understand the Republicans are the ones that are going to stand up for safety and for security, and to make sure people can live prosperous lives and raise their families in communities that are safe. And the Republicans are the ones that protect the sovereignty of our nation. And that of course, is critically important. On life, very exciting times right now in the pro-life movement. Who here has seen the new movie Unplanned? It just came out on Thursday. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's fantastic. I've got a new job now, actually. My new boss is Mike Lindell, the inventor and CEO of MyPillow. I work for him as general counsel for his charitable foundation. And he helped fund the movie. And it's a fantastic movie. And I think it's going to be game-changing in terms of moving opinion on the pro-life issue. But polling shows that in the last maybe month and a half, public opinion has shifted on the life issue such that for the first time, took by about 18 points. And now for the first time in history of polling on this issue, there are more pro-life Americans than there are pro-choice Americans. And President Trump, God bless him, is making this a campaign issue. And the Democrats are way over their skis on this, and they're pushing, like I like Jim Hagedorn's way he put it. 4th trimester abortions. It's infanticide, folks. That's what they're pushing for. That's what they tried to pass in Virginia, and that's basically what they did pass in New York. So now is the time to stand up for life. They're pushing for all of their extreme policies right now, and we need to fight back right now. So the next 3 cycles are going to be incredibly critical. Religious freedom, so critically important. We cannot have any of our other freedoms unless we have religious freedom first. But religious freedom is the first of all the different freedoms that are listed in the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. You've got free exercise of religion and no establishment of religion, and you've got free speech, and you've got freedom of the press and assembly, and the right to petition your government. Those are the freedoms in the First Amendment. But freedom of religion comes first for a reason. And think about it this way, if the government is willing to regulate who you can worship, what God you can worship, how you worship your Creator, the ultimate things in life, our ultimate concerns, the destiny of our soul for eternal salvation or damnation. If the government is willing to tell folks that they can or can't worship God in a particular way, or they can or can't live their lives according to religious beliefs, well then guess what? There is nothing the government won't regulate. There is no other freedom that the government won't overstep. Because those are the most ultimate things. Things like the material things in life, economic liberty and everything else, it's a step down. So if the government's going to take away our religious liberty, it'll take away everything else too. And that's why we have to stand up for religious liberty, and it is under attack. Some of you know that I was legal counsel with a group called Alliance Defending Freedom for a number of years. And I'm still an allied attorney with them, and what Alliance Defending Freedom does is fight for religious freedom and free speech in cases all across the country. And I can tell you from personal experience that it is under assault all across this country. The number of cases is increasing on a monthly basis. And it's under assault right here in Minnesota. Some of you have probably heard about this ridiculous conversion therapy bill that's in the House of Representatives and probably heading over to the Senate. There could be this is a terrible bill, because what it does is it says folks that want to seek counseling, basically talk therapy, to eliminate certain kinds of attractions that they may not want. Well, this bill says that they can't do that for certain classes of people. Just think about that. This bill that the government is going to, some Democrats think would be appropriate to pass in Minnesota, would say that you can't talk to a psychiatrist or a psychologist about things you might want to talk about. Well, we have this thing called the First Amendment, and it does protect freedom of speech. So the government can't come in and tell you that you can't talk about subject A, B, or C with your counselor. And it doesn't matter if we're just talking about kids or about vulnerable adults, as the bill says. No. If this bill passes, it will be challenged in court. And I will make sure it's challenged in court, by the way. I'll do everything in my power to make sure this bill doesn't pass, and I will make sure that it's challenged in court, because what we're talking about here is evil. What we're talking about here is whether Americans have the right to talk about things with each other. If you go down this path, it leads to eliminating civil discourse, basically, and the government controlling what people say and what people think. That is not a path to go down. That is not a path to go down. So call your senators, make sure they stand strong against the conversion therapy bill. And make that an action item for Monday, if you would. So we are, we're on a number of fronts, our freedoms are under attack. But we have a lot to be hopeful for. We had a huge showing in the last election. We had massive turnout. The Democrats had an even larger turnout. But the fact of the matter is, we are going to win, ultimately. And I know this is true, because we have truth on our side. Because we fight for faith and for freedom and for justice. We fight to lift people up and let them become all that God means for them to be. So let's move forward together and be filled with courage and hope and even joy at the great opportunity that we have to do so much good for our state and our country and our people. And by the grace of God, together we will prevail. Thank you all so much. God bless.
So here's what we're going to do. We are going to, after this, I'm going to have a point of privilege right after I'm done speaking for our chair. We are going to eat, and then we're going to go through the line and eat, and then in about 15 or 20 minutes, we are then going to continue with the speakers and get the agenda done as well. But I was simply asking for a point of privilege that the chair can speak.
Thank you, Nate. So this is an Asian American convention, so we will have Asian food.
All right.
So if you guys are hungry, we're going to have dinner. But before dinner, we're going to say grace, and Nathan Raditz is going to say your grace. Thank you.
My former time, I was a senior pastor at a large Lutheran church. I did this all the time. Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Heavenly Father, again, we thank you this day that we are come together to talk about the great work in this country, in this state, and at a local level as well. Bless the Asian community, as particularly also those within the Republican group that we are here now to talk about, that they continue to go out into their communities and spread the message of freedom throughout. Also bless the food which you're about to eat. All of this we ask, through your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Well, that's the first three tables. He didn't tell me to say this. You can go and start eating. So the first three tables are crossed. But we'll first hear from Senator Roger Chamberlain.
Well, good evening. I just have a few notes just to look at, but it won't take me that long. So thank you very much. Very humbled and honored to be here to speak to all of you. It's been an interesting journey. But before I go on, we have to CD4 chair, if you don't know her, Mickey Murray. We'll stand up for a second, Mickey Murray. So she's our new CD4. All these politicians give hello and point it out all the time, but there's a lot of great people that work at different levels, as you know. And where'd Robert go? Did he eat? Oh, there he is. So this whole journey for me started with CAP, Council of Asia Pacific Minnesotans. I was on there about 5-6 years. I met a lot of great people, learned a lot of great things, and that's where I met many of you. Went to a lot of events. It was really, truly wonderful. But we started to part ways with disaggregated data issues, and they took it personally, and we haven't talked much lately. So it's nice that Senator Pratt will be taking that position. I have full faith and confidence in him that he will do a great job on that board. And make sure that we don't get railroaded. It's actually a very Democrat operation. So all the relationships and all this began with CAP. Got to meet a lot of people. And then I had a meeting and a dinner at the tea house. Oh. I had no idea what to expect. None. I mean, I had my defenses up. I had all my arguments ready. I had no idea. Because we didn't meet up and we didn't know how this goes. So I got there and I listened. I almost cried. It was amazing to hear what they had to say. Get their feedback, hear what they had to say. And on CAPM, I met Zoe on CAPM, and Famati, who's Pacific Islander, some of you know Famati. So it's been a great journey. So at the tea house, that was the first minutes. And I was blessed to go to other community events and theater. It was just truly wonderful. So what all this is about is when I meet all of you, and I've heard these things, and the comments up here today from our current GOP chair, Carnahan, and others about America and Americanism and what that is. We're not just a place, right? It's an idea. It transcends borders and history and time. Yeah, we've had some. There it goes. We've had some bad times, but the idea is what matters. And they're trying to destroy that idea. So it's the inherent dignity of people, liberty, freedom, self-governance, rule of law. It's the old cliche. It's become a beacon to a lot of people around the world. It's hope that all those things are possible, that you can work hard, play hard, play by the rules, and all you want to do is be left alone, raise your family, and take care of your family. But they make it really hard for you to do that. So what I see in all of you is an embodiment of a new idea, a new hope, to keep that idea alive and keep it burning in everybody. I was just talking to Mike here, and he has thoughts and ideas. He'll finally get his medical license by the time he's 31 after 14 years of school. Congratulations. It's the embodiment. You do have that. And that is the new hope I have. Because look, folks, There are days I get up and I think, this just isn't working. I'm wasting my time. And every now and then, someone like all of you pop up. And you give me new hope, and you give others new hope. So you have to work to keep that light burning. That's going to be upon you. So quick word about the current climate, right? Real polarization out there, not like we've had for a long time. Some people call it a civil war, cold civil war, cultural war, spiritual war, but it is hard. So I was reading Peggy Noonan. Someone sent me an article because I don't watch the news anymore. I just don't. I'm one of those that don't watch the news. I read and I listen to music. I don't watch the news. I'm off the internet. Well, you might see me on Twitter, but that's not me. That's someone else tweeting my stuff because I don't go out there anymore, or on Facebook. So Peggy Noonan talks about this new challenge we have. So she says, for example, here's what we face. It's not enough that the government has this plan for paying for contraception for everybody. But it's not enough they do that. They got to force the nuns to abide by it. It's not enough you be sensitive with the words and the language that you use. You have to be forced to say things and not say things. And then you're punished for doing that. You just have to finish this quote. It's not enough that same-sex marriage is legal, but now you aren't allowed, now you're forced to bake the cake, right? So it's not that we can be left alone. They want conformity. They want your mind. They want ideological conformity. They don't want you to think yourself. I was talking to a gentleman back there. It's great. You fall in line, right? You're a minority. You're a woman. You work. You pay taxes. But then, if you disagree with them, you're crazy and you're gone. It's no longer, it doesn't matter what you look like or your gender. You better think like them, otherwise that you're finished. So, I don't have much more to say, thankfully. But it's really been a blessing and a pleasure to work with all of you and know all of you and meet all of you. But you are the new hope to keep the American idea alive and keep fighting for it. We'll hand off the baton. And I told some of my friends at Camp who wanted to support this, who love disaggregated data, DD, not the DD that used to be here, but another DD, it's DD. Oh, there he is over there. DD is just short for it. So, it's just that, they use fear, anger, division to try to bring us down. So, what do? Persuade, be light, be the beacon, and show them that there's much more to it than that. And if you upset the wrong people, there were 150 people in the committee room last Wednesday for the hearing. They picked on the wrong people to oppose. So God bless all of you. Thank you for letting me talk for a few minutes. And thank you for keep coming.
Thank you very, very much, Senator Robert Chamberlain. We're going to run through this list quickly to get back to business, but there's about 5 speakers left. We'd like to welcome, for a couple minutes, Forrest Hyatt, who's going to be running for U.S. Senate.
The only problem with coming to one of these functions, when you have a whole lot of conservatives speaking, is everybody says everything before you get a chance to come up here and say it yourself. But it is good to be here. It's good to see all of you. I am running for the United States Senate. I have filed already. I ran the last time. I did not get the endorsement, so I honored the endorsement. We supported Karn Housley. But I will be running again this time to get the endorsement. A little bit about me. I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in our Constitution. But in order to understand our Constitution, one needs to read our Declaration of Independence. In our Declaration of Independence, there are approximately 27 or 29 grievances that we had with the King of England. Our Constitution and our Bill of Rights answered every single one of those grievances. And it started with the right to free speech. And then a whole paragraph is dedicated to our Second Amendment. Because their importance on that was that if you do not have the weapons, you will not be able to keep your government in line. The whole purpose of our Second Amendment is to overthrow a bad government. It's not for hunting. It's not for self-protection. Those were actually a given. Our founding fathers never, ever envisioned a time where we would not be able to carry a gun and protect ourselves and hunt and feed our families. They never envisioned that. But they did know that sometime in the future, men would try to take over our government, and it would be time for us to step in and take it away from them. My ancestors, most of them were here long, long time ago. I had one of them that even fought with General Washington. Not fought with him, but alongside of him. But I did have, so my grandfather came here. My grandfather's full-blooded Bohemian. He came here from Bohemia to escape countries that were turning communist. Now, many people think that our country was based on capitalism to start with. It was not. We were actually a socialist country for the first 3 years. When the Pilgrims got here, they all went out and they farmed, and they grew this, they grew that, and they put it all in a big storeroom, and then they divvied it up according to how many people were in your family. And that's what you got. It didn't take very long for some people to start to think, well, you know, I don't really have to work that hard, and I'm going to get the same amount. It didn't take only a few years. And the Pilgrims went back to the Bible and they said, oh, wait a minute, here's this verse here that says, if you don't work, neither should you eat. And they implemented that. And after that, everybody started working hard again because they no longer got their free share for sitting around and waiting for it. That's what our country's built on. That's what America's about. Being able to come here. My grandfather came here because this was a free country. A country where he could come, do, and be whatever he wanted to be. You know, as your senator, I want to go to Washington because things need to be fixed. But we, the people, need to be the people. Not just in Washington, but right here on the local level, in your cities, your counties, our state. But we need to be the people that get involved. We need to be the people. Not just sitting back and waiting. It is a shame when we have a country where the national average is only 50% of the eligible voters will show up to vote. That means if you divide the other half, the ones that do vote, it only takes 26% of the entire population of this country to elect the President of the United States. And right now we have 5 cities in this country who could elect the President and leave all the rest of us out of it. Something that is dangerous, something we need to stay away from. That's why we like the Electoral College. But I'm also a 10th Amendment guy. And that's why I say we the people need to be the people, because our 10th Amendment says that we the people are the government. They serve us, we don't serve them. We now have, if you look at the list of grievances in our Declaration of Independence, you can see that our government has broken almost every single one of them. We are in the same place now we were 200 and some years ago, where we broke away from the king. We have the same reasons. Judicial overreach, when judges become more powerful than our Congress. When our elected officials become smarter and know what's better for us than we do. That is not freedom. We need to be free, but we the people need to be the people, because when the 10th Amendment gives you your rights back, the state's rights back, the people's rights back, we need to be there to make sure they're administered on that local level. I could go on all night too, but I'm not going to. You guys got a lot of things to talk about. But I'm going to be traveling around the state, visiting with a lot of people. The campaign really doesn't start big for us until next spring, because it's 2020, and what's-her-name Smith is probably going to run for re-election again. There's a few people going to throw their hats in the ring, but I'm here now, and I want to serve as your senator. Thank you.
Before we get Barb Sutter, before we get Senator Eric Pratt, because I think she may have to leave soon, we'll welcome up Donna Bergstrom, who'd like to say a few words before the end of the meeting.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Justice here. How's that? Can everybody hear me? Yep. Good to be with you. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be with you this evening. I am just so honored to be here with you, to be able to thank you personally for all the support and help that you gave for the Johnson-Bergstrom campaign. We were sorely disappointed that we didn't win. We were one of the top vote getters, like Doug had mentioned earlier, as a Republican ticket in the state of Minnesota, but we weren't able to overcome our opponent. But it wasn't because we didn't work hard and we didn't work together with folks like you to get our message out. We really appreciated all of that, so thank you so much. We're pushing back against our socialist friends who want to turn our state into a sanctuary state, into a state that doesn't abide by our federal laws. And that was something that Jeff and I spoke firmly against, that we would not have it that way, because we wanted to defend our freedoms here. So I wanted to just say that in 1987, I accepted my commission. As many of you may have remembered, I was commissioned in the United States Marine Corps Reserve. And at that time, President Reagan was my commander-in-chief. And the global threat was worldwide communism. The United States was leading the way and was known as the free world. So I spent over 20 years in the military on both reserve and active duty assignments as an intelligence officer. And when I retired, thank you, Barb, when I retired in 2010, President Obama was my commander-in-chief. What a difference 20 years can make. As Reagan wisely stated, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We need to remember that. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. So if you had told me 30 years ago, when I was accepting my commission as a second lieutenant, that I'd be fighting socialism here in America, 30 years from now, I would have said, no way, that just can't be. But yet here I am, and here we were doing just that. And thank God we have President Trump, who recently stated that America will never be a socialist country. Thank you. You'd think we have learned our lessons after watching history unfold with Berlin, USSR, China, Cuba, Nicaragua, North Vietnam, and really quite recently Venezuela, that we would get it. That these nations, led by hostile and repressive regimes, provided very clear lessons of the failures. These governments delivered only poverty, alienation, despair, and certainly no sense of the formulation of a utopian future, which is what they like to argue for. So the second observation that I'd like to make with people is that I'm an American Indian. My mom was born and raised on the Red Lake Reservation. So I come from a people who have had their land taken away, who have had their weapons taken away, who've had their culture, and who've had and continue to have their children taken away. Yet we have survived. We are still here because America is still here. We are still here because this is our home, and we are not going anywhere, and we will defend it. And we are so proud. We're so proud to stand along strong patriots like you in this fight. So thank you again so much. The tragedies and imperfections of our history are not repeated because we learn from our past and we grow as a nation. America is still intact because of our constitutional guarantees, including the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So this great nation is increasingly divided. We've heard that earlier too, that between those who revere the Constitution and those who do not. And efforts to weaken this country are being institutionalized and socialized into what is known as the common lexicon. So we need to push back at our local, state, and our federal level, and thank God that we have people willing to do that. So thank you all for all that you do, and thank you for all that you do for our fight for freedom. Our country was founded on principles such as limited government, individual liberty, federalism, and private property. And I know that you all get that, and so together we will continue to fight against the socialist push and stand up for the fruits of our nation here in America. So thank you so very much.
Before we have the last few speakers, we're going to do one thing quickly. We're going to have the final credentials report. Is Yelly Miss here? He's probably right outside the door. Here's Yelly Miss. You could come forward. I don't know if I can pronounce it correctly, but in Hmong, in order to say hurry, hurry, it's something like jujua, jujua. No.
Just kidding. All right. Mr. Chairman, committee board members, the food is delicious. That is my report. Mr. Chairman, committee board members, and voter members, the final credentials report, we now have 36 voting members, and all voting members do qualify based upon the Armed Constitution membership clause. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yelly. We'd like to welcome up Barb Sutter, who works for the Minnesota GOP, and she volunteers for Minnesota GOP. But one of her responsibilities is that she works with the affiliate groups. Welcome, Barb.
Well, can you hear me? I guess I should. Yeah. I'm really pleased to be here with you today, speaking at your convention. Thank you for having both me and my husband Randy, who's joined me. I have worked with your affiliate group now for over 2 years. And in that time, I've really been, I have to say, proud to witness your growth and your contributions. Yelamis Yang stepped up, he ran for office. You, as a group, raised and donated thousands of dollars to our candidate, and yes, there were those thousands. You funded electronic billboards for statewide candidates and for every congressional district's candidate. You hosted large events, meet and greets for statewide candidates. And the Hmong markets hosted major candidates with the help of the members here. So my message is, you are the future of the Republican Party. You are showing the party new ways to reach out, ways to be more inclusive, and how to be more dynamic. Now, to realize even more of your potential, your affiliate groups, this one, all of our affiliate groups need to grow. We are setting some new and ambitious goals together and have had a first meeting as we look at 2019 and 2020 just a few weeks ago. I would urge you, and this is a wonderful event tonight, Host more events to let others know who you are and what you are like. Coming together at cultural events in your respective communities is really important for all of us. It allows us to get to know one another and to learn from one another. Let the rest of us in the Republican Party know when you're having key events. If you're not already doing it, I'm suggesting that you not only share it with one another, but spread the word to your respective BPOUs and congressional districts, that you work with them. I'm happy to help you with that. That's one of the reasons that I'm here and love to work with you. We need to get that word out. There's so much room for growth in the Asian American community among the Minnesotans. So, and as you know, so many are conservative. Give them a reason to realize that they are not alone out there politically. Growing your numbers increases all of our votes in the next election. So reach out, share your values, and before I finish, just a few questions. How many of you here come from House districts that the DFL won last year? And a lot of us here, a lot of us lost people. I know that you can see ways that we could have done better, ways that our candidates could have campaigned smarter, ways that we probably could have provided them with stronger support. So I'm urging you to reach out to your Republican leaders, tell them that you want to be involved. I know they'd be thrilled to have your help, and if they don't welcome you with open arms, let me know that, seriously. I would be very happy to let them know what they're missing by not knowing you and not working with you. So over the past 2 years, I've truly enjoyed working with you. A number of you have become close friends. I'm very happy about that. I look forward to growing these friendships, to continuing to work with you. And let me close by saying, let's do great things together. Thank you so much.
As we're almost done with the list of speakers, he's on the list, I didn't formally ask. James Carson, would you like to speak? Yes, he would, awesome. He's running for deputy chair of the Minnesota GOP. He's one of 3 candidates running. He's the only one here tonight.
Thank you, Nate. Jim Carson, running for deputy chair of the state party. I'll try not to take too much of your time. As I travel, thank you, Jim. As I travel around the state, I've talked with dozens of people about what the problems we are facing as Republicans. Number 1 is money. Number 2 is what to do about the 4th and 5th district. Believe it or not, people especially when you get outside the metro, they are very concerned about what's going on here in the 4th and 5th. 3rd is training. 4th is data. And 5th is the problem with voter fraud. I don't have any good answers on voter fraud. That's the honest answer. On the other 4 things, though, I've done quite a bit of work over my time in politics. From 2013 to 2017, I was the chair of the 4th Congressional District. And during that time, I made a particular point to engage our Congressional District organization in more outreach. So for starting with 14, we made the commitment to be in every event every year, and we were largely successful with that. So if you've seen a Republican tent at the dragon boat races, at Little Mekong, at the soccer tournament, at the half a dozen other events that are out there that are Asian related, that was most likely me and Dallas Pearson who were out there doing the tent. And we had a lot of help then from the folks in the Hmong community in particular on those getting those things put together and having a presence at those things. Actually, Dallas is my favorite events are the Asian events because the food's so good. And thank you, by the way, for dinner. It was outstanding. But the need we have is great for outreach in all of these communities. And it's not just Asian, it's not just Latino, it's any place where we have a blue district. What happens is, especially the bluer the district, the longer it's been since we've been since we won there. How's this work? Okay, since we've won there, the party has neglected to talk to anybody. We may talk to a few Republicans once in a while, but what we don't do is make a systematic effort to recruit new people and to recruit and to talk to people who are not with us. And it makes it much easier for the Democrats to scare people. And so that they get away with saying Republicans are racist, despite the fact that we have an Asian woman chair. We're the all-male party that's sexist and racist. That sounds ridiculous. But the
Areas around the state, and Mickey Murray was just elected, and I have the distinct privilege of serving underneath her as a vice president.
Good evening, everyone, and I am excited to be here. I welcome you to Congressional District 4. I live in St. Paul, and I grew up in Congressional District 5, which, as you've heard, kind of thrown into similar circumstance, I'll say. Very Democratic areas, growing more so, depending on which numbers you're looking at, and yet there is still a need to find a place for a conservative voice. There are many, many, many people, many communities that are represented within CD4 that don't have a place at the table. They don't have a say, and they don't know that they're being taken advantage of. It's unfortunate that you can help people and still manage to trod them underfoot at the same time. And that is the whole point to organizations like this. That is the point to getting out and informing people of what it is that we believe, why it is we actually think we can manage our families ourselves, that we don't need the government to step in and visit our children from the earliest age on up to identify when I need to take them out of my home and put them in a public school, that somehow I can't manage that on my own. That somehow I can't manage that with my family members. That somehow in my community, we just can't work that out ourselves. And that is incredibly wrong. Incredibly wrong. Because whatever your family structure looks like, chances are you came up in an environment like that, and so did your parents, and so did your aunts and your uncles and all your cousins, and whomever, go back many generations. We are used to taking care of our families. And so it is a dark stain on our government and on our nation to think that it is the government's role to take that over. And it's been happening one step at a time, and then we get to the point where now you hear comments like, we're almost like we were at the time of the Civil War. Or we're almost back to the sentiments that existed, when the Boston Tea Party took place, where there are issues that are night and day. We can't have both. It is not possible for us to compromise because the issues are polar opposites. And so I am excited as I sit here. I honestly did not realize that you're 2 years old as an organization. I had no idea. And I am excited to see the strength that you bring because honestly, I've heard all about the things that you were doing throughout the last year. And so that just shows the conviction that you are bringing into this community. And you're made up of a number of different communities. There are so many that are part of what is now part of the Asian American Republican community. And so I applaud you to making a place at the table for so many different voices, different experiences. Because we have a say, and we need to have a say. We need to exercise that say. So I'm thankful for whatever partnership exists between CD4 and, you say it, ARM. Is that how you pronounce it? ARM. Whatever state it's in, I am excited to build upon it. Because we have a lot of people who need to understand what conservative voices and conservative principles mean, and that they already agree. So I'm excited, I'm thankful to be here tonight, to meet some of you. I look forward to meeting more of you. I was kind of stunned that I get to vote. I mean, I assumed I could, but then when I got to the table, it was questioned. But my mother's family is Hawaiian. And so I asked, really? Are Christian Pacific Islanders included? And I was told yes, so I get to vote. So thank you for welcoming me, which is frankly what happens all the time. This is what happens in Asian communities, is you get welcomed. But I look forward to working with you, and I am excited to see what comes as the organization continues to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey, otherwise known as my boss. The last speaker we will invite tonight, we'll have before us Senator Eric Pratt. Again, he is, if I'm correct, the new, I say a liaison, maybe that's a wrong word, the liaison for the Asian American Pacific Islander Council of Minnesota.
Well, thank you all very much. You're too kind. So I am Eric Pratt. I not only am on the Council of Asian and Pacific Americans, having to fill the seats of Senator Roger Chamberlain, but also have the privilege of being Assistant Majority Leader and serving the great people of Scott County, Prior Lake, Shakopee, and Jordan. I also have really the privilege of being able to serve with Senator Chamberlain. He is, sorry, Roger. You're one of the conscience. He acts as the conscience of the caucus sometimes, and he's a great team member, and I love serving with him. I'm going to make you two promises tonight that no other politician will keep. I'm going to be brief, and I'm going to keep my promise. So, I was thinking as I was coming here tonight about, and by the way, I changed all my remarks. Nothing that I prepared is going to be spoken tonight. Everybody said it. It was awesome. So I'm going to wing it. If it doesn't make sense, that's why. But as I was on my way here tonight, I was thinking about the Gettysburg Address. And I was thinking about the opening line. That our fathers created on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Our founder of this party, Abraham Lincoln, said those very words, and said them in a way that they hadn't been said since Thomas Jefferson wrote them in the Declaration of Independence. I'm sorry, I got chills thinking about that. That's awesome. Think about it. The founder of our party, our very party, was based on the values of our nation. Abraham Lincoln used those values to keep this country together during a great civil war and liberate people. Ronald Reagan used those very same values to defeat communism and socialism and end the Cold War without a shot being fired by unleashing those values. That's awesome. And it made me think about what Chair Carnahan was saying. You know, how they wanted to know what your party stands for. Well, their party stands for a 70% gas tax increase. Their party wants to make it more expensive for you to get sick. Their party wants to take away your basic freedoms. Their party wants to make it more expensive for every employer and employee and resident in Minnesota in this district, in this state. What do we stand for? We stand to protect your basic freedoms. We stand here tonight to allow you to achieve that American dream, to own a home, to own a business, to make sure that your children are better off than you are today. I think about my grandfather who came here. They immigrated here from Russia right before the Bolshevik Revolution. Just like many of your families left oppression, so did mine. And I'm so grateful he did. And so, hold on, I told you I was winging it. So we've got us versus them. And we took a beating in 2018. Let's just call it what we did. We took a beating in 2018. But guess what? 2020 starts tonight. 2020 is where we take this state back. 2020 is where we come back with the values that made this state and this country great. We are going to bring the good life back to Minnesota. And it starts tonight. And I'm so proud to see this room filled. But you know what? Like Barb Sutter said, we need to make it safe for people to talk to you. We need to make it safe for people to tell you that they believe in your values because they're being told they can't. I want to see you reach out to your friends and your neighbors and your family and bring them here next year. And when Roger and I come back next year, I want to see a room twice as full. And we will win in 2020, we will win in 2022, and we will take this state back for family and freedom. And thank you very much for having me here tonight.
And now we will get back to the agenda. Thank you, Senator Eric Kraft, for some very important work now on the agenda. Next in line, we have the approval of the Constitution, and we will ask Robert Yang to come up, who would help chair that. And I was heard of some of the meetings. They did a lot of work on this. Robert Yang.
So if you take a look at the screen, the Constitutional Committee was made up of myself, Si-Feng Wu, Chuck Lee, Mike Mui, Kyo Ting, and Yelimis Yang. We didn't change a lot, but I just want to thank someone for helping us create this Constitution. That's Barb Sutter. She wrote this 2 years ago, so thanks, Barb. So one of the things that we changed is, first of all, this Constitution is 8 pages long. So we got rid of Asian American Republicans and we changed it to AARM. So instead of 8 pages, it would be 4 or 5. And we changed president to chair. So anything that said president is now changed to chair. So Mike, if you could go to Article 5. Article 5, to be a member, we did add a section 3B. In order to become a delegate or alternate to the Republican State Party Convention or State Central Committee Convention, you must be a U.S. citizen at the time of election. So last year, we forgot this in our Constitution, so we wanted to align with the state party. So that was one of the big changes. And also in Section 1A, last time we did not have you must reside in Minnesota, we added that. And that's about it. That's our constitutional change. And back to you, Chair.
So I bring those changes before you. Before we put this to a vote to ratify this, is there any discussion or anyone that would like to make comments before we vote on that? So now all of those of you who, as you registered, are eligible voters, we will vote now on the changes of that Constitution. All in favor of those changes, which will take all at once, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Those changes are approved to the Constitution. Now we'd like to move on to the Search Committee report. And that would be Yelimis Yang. Can you please come forward?
Checkmate. Yes, I was checking the food. Mr. Chairman, voting members, the cake is good. So, there's more cake in the back there. But, Mr. Chairman, board members, the search committee's report. The search committee has met and interviewed the candidate for chair, and the committee found that all the positions, chairman, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer, and the committee found that the candidates are qualified. Thank you very much.
And so the candidates for chair would be The candidates for vice chair would, 3 of them would be KK, known as KK. Could you please stand up? I know he's here. There he is, right there, right in front. And also, actually, there's 2. Mike Louie. Could you please stand up? Thank you very much. And then the next 2 positions would be secretary, and she is not present, if I understand that. That would be Kayla Kane. Some of you may know her. I think she spent a lot of time volunteering for the Jason Lewis campaign, and I think CD2, if I'm correct, in that region as well. And then also for treasurer, I know she's here, Zoe Z. And if you don't know, I won't go into her background, but she is as as Senator Chamberlain, and I think Senator Pratt mentioned, she does currently serve on the Council, Minnesota Council Asian...
Council of Asian American Minnesota.
Very good. Council of Asian American Minnesota. I know the council well, but I keep forgetting how to pronounce it. So for those 3 positions, vice chair, secretary, as well as treasurer, those are the only people standing. So what we will ask is to, by voice acclamation, approve that slate, and then they will be elected. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor of that slate of vice president, secretary, and treasurer, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. We can congratulate them now. Now we continue with the chair's report.
So this is my last day as chair of the Asian American Republicans. It's been a phenomenal 2 years, and I just want to thank all of you guys for supporting our organization. And with that said, so this is my final chair's report. I'll just give a summary of the past 2 years. So 2 years ago, May of 2017, we had our very first ARM convention. That day we elected our first executive committee, and I really want to recognize them. My 3 vice chair, Chuck Lee, who's not here today, Ed Paprocki, who's not here today, he's helping a friend move, and my other vice chair, Yelemis Yang, he's out there, and my other vice chair, Zane Yang, he's on call for work. And Ling Lee, she's now a Texan. She moved to Texas after the election. So when she said that if Governor Walz was elected, she was going to move, she kept her words. So we wish her the best. She will stop by and visit us sometime. And my last board member, Meiji Kane, she is the executive assistant to Jennifer Carnahan. She's done a phenomenal job. So with that said, I also want to thank someone who has helped us a lot, our affiliate group, and that is Barb Sutter. She has always been someone who I can talk to and take advice from. She was one of the people behind getting our affiliate group approved, and so I want to thank her for that. She's always available to take my calls whenever I need something or need help. I'm still a rookie at this, so just a few years I'll be more of a pro. Another person I want to thank is Janet Beihoffer. She had to go somewhere, so she's not here right now. Janet is the reason why I'm here today in politics. She is the reason why I got to know so many of you. She was the one who recruited me to the Republican Party of Minnesota. For those of you who don't know, back in 2014, Keith Down, our former chair Keith Down, said, go get me an Asian guy. So she said, okay. And I was at a college Republican event, and that's where I met her. She invited me to meet Keith, and that's how I thought about, hey, let's start an organization. And Keith Downey, he's in Montana right now, but I just sent him a text message earlier thanking him. So, and I would like to go over the past 2 years as when I was chair. So, our very first ARM meeting was in June, was a picnic. I was very nervous because this was my first time doing this, and we had 100 people showed up. And Janet Weinhofer was there, Jeff Johnson was there. It was a great event. My good friend Jennifer Carnahan was appointed by the President Trump administration as a commission member on the White House AAPI. The president just signed her officially to be a member last month. So I'm very proud of her. And one of the things that I did the last 2 years was I took an internship at the White House. It was a phenomenal experience. And when I got to the White House, they asked me, Robert, you can invite someone to take a tour of the West Wing. Now, the West Wing consists of the Rose Garden, the Oval Office, and the Press Secretary. The Press Secretary is where you see Sir Huckabee Sanders speak. So I decided to invite 2 very special people, and I said, I will never forget the people who made me successful in politics. So that was Barb Sutter, right there, and Representative Cindy Pugh, former Representative Cindy Pugh. So I just want to thank them. They helped me a lot. They were my mentors. But here's the thing. Most of the interns invited their parents and family. And you may ask why I did not invite my parents. So I'm going to tell you why. Because I have Asian parents. So if you don't know what that means, when you tell your parents that you've done something phenomenal, Asian parents are going to say, that's not good enough. So when I told my parents I got the internship at the White House, I get to see Trump and Mike Pence, my parents, not good enough. But that's the highest office. There's no office higher than that. We'll find one. So I said, okay, Barb. So I called up Barb and Cindy Pugh, and they flew, and they got to see the Oval Office and the Rose Garden. The Rose Garden is very beautiful. And last election, our very own Vice Chair, Yelemis Yang, ran for House District 42B. He lost, but he ran in an incredible race. They thought that he was a joke, but when they saw the campaign finance numbers, they decided to crank up a bit. So during that election, we knocked on 10,000 doors, and Yelemis knocked on doors 8 hours a day, and Kayla King, her parents helped put up a few hundred lawn signs for Yeli. So that was an incredible race. I was the campaign manager. It was hard. But we did it. Even though Yeli lost, we will still hear back from him. He's not done yet. So, also in the last election, with the help of the Chinese American community, they also done a phenomenal job, raising $12,000 for Senate candidate Jim Newberger, $4,000 for former House Rep Kelly Fenton, $2,000 for House Rep candidate Annie Tironi in 53A. They also raised $2,000 for Karen Housley. So I want to thank the Chinese American community of Minnesota. They did a phenomenal job. So when Becky Hall said she heard that we raised a lot of money for candidates, that's right. So in our last election, including Yelemis's campaign, we raised a total of $62,000 for Republican candidates. Wow. So for the next new coming chair in a few minutes, you gotta do better than $62,000 in 2020. If you go to the campaign finance board and you see a lot of Asian names under Republican candidates, chances are they're sitting right here. So thank you. You all did a phenomenal job. So my goal in the beginning was to be a serious affiliate group. I didn't want to be a joke. I wanted to show the Republican Party that we are willing to put sacrifice and effort to advance the Republican platform. When I first became chair on our very first meeting on May 6, 2017, I stated that in order to succeed, sometimes we've got to sacrifice, and that includes working for free. A lot of these door knocking, lid dropping, a lot of it is unpaid. And when you want to step up your game, I wanted to build my background, my resume in politics. So I knew that in order to do that, I had to work for free. I put thousands of miles on my car. As you know, for those of you who don't know, I live in Rogers. And most of the Asian people in Minnesota, they live in CD4. So it's always a 45-minute drive each way. And that takes a lot of time. But our next chair, I heard that she lives in Scott County. Scott County to CD4 is pretty far, so. For the last 2 years, I made some mistakes. I thought I could have been a better chair, but it was phenomenal getting to know all of you, and you guys helped me grow, helped me learn. And there's a couple people who I want to thank as well. And that person, one of those people, is my fiance, Gao Bang. So we got engaged 1 year ago, 2 years ago today.
Nope. Nope, 30
Wait.
words.
What?
The 31st.
The 31st? Okay. Tomorrow.
Hey, we can celebrate today and tomorrow.
Okay. So our original wedding date was October 5th of 2018. But since I took the internship, it was unpaid, and I wanted to work on campaigns. Doug Warlow wanted me to help on his campaign. Yali was running. So I decided to see if I could push our wedding date back, and she was more than happy to. It's very rare that you find that. And so thank you, hon. I love you. Thank you for supporting me. That internship was super hard, unpaid, no money at all. So, but I get used to it. I work for free, volunteering anyway. And before I step away as your chair, I want to thank someone as well. And that someone has done a fantastic job. He has so much passion to the Republican Party, always committing to door knocking and hosting fundraisers. This member, on his spare time, he tutors math to students in his local area in Woodbury. He is willing to step up and host fundraisers for candidates. Earlier I said, I gave the numbers. He led an effort to raise $12,000 for Jim Newberger, $4,000 for Kelly Fenton, $2,000 for Annie Taroni, and $2,000 for Carmen Housen. And he has done a phenomenal job. He's not done yet. He's still going at it, and he will help you all if you want to run for office. So Eric Pratt, if you need help with fundraising, call this person. And that person is Chuck Lee. He's not here today. I got him the Chairman's Award. Hold on 1 second. So this is for Chuck. This guy is phenomenal. He will raise money for you guys. He is phenomenal. He's passionate. He's a Trump lover, and he's not here today. He had to he had another obligation. I was texting him. I didn't want to tell him that, hey, I want to honor you here. So I said, please come. He couldn't make it. So, but please join me in appreciating him in spirit. So that's my last report. See ya.
When somebody works hard in a running office or volunteer,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yelling Miss, would you like to come back by any means to introduce or say anything about the chair election that we will be having?
As well, interview them and ask them questions about their vision and the future about the field, as well as just the concerned citizens of the state of Minnesota here. So we met with a candidate for the chair, and she's wonderful. She's fantastic. Lots of energy, has been very focal on the issues, and has been very passionate about helping the community, her community, as well as everybody else too. And she's been very humble and very passionate about that, and we just cannot let these kind of individuals go. And so we need someone like this. And so without further ado, please everybody help me welcome the new chair of the Asian American Republican Party of Minnesota, Sue Fay.
We will kindly vote to affirm that first. And I do know she has a lot of energy because I receive texts from her and calls from her all the time, in the morning early, late at night, but I can say she's very passionate. So what we would like to do now is vote by voice acclamation for Miss Sifong Wu. Sifong? I was close. And it's not because I don't know her that I mispronounced her name. I know her very well. But again, she is the sole candidate up for election for the chair position. So all in favor of Sifong Wu, I was close, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. We welcome the new chair of the Asian American Republicans of Minnesota.
Well, I'm just too excited and might be a little emotional too, because I'm really, really humbled, with no training and knowledge and experience in the political field. And today you choose me as your chair. This means a lot. Thank you so much. I did write a little short speech, and I promise, sure this it will be short. And I know my responsibility is very challenging because Senator Pratt said next year we need double this size, so help me out next year. And also I remembered $62,000 raised, and we need double that, so help me out. Friends, I know we got even Perry, my friends in their payroll. And I got so many friends from other groups, and some from Shoreview and Woodbury and all over the Twin Cities. And I see so many of my Republican friends from the GOP party. It's just a tremendous honor here to be next chair. So if I tell a little bit about my experience during the last year and a half, I know it's actually very, it's kind of, I call it it's an adventure that I had not thought about at the beginning of last year. The reason I got into is I blame Zooey and Senator Pratt for all this. Because Zooey is very good at motivation speech. And she motivated me to present at a meeting that Senator Champagne set up to meet Senator Pratt to voice some concerns on an issue. And Zooey said, well, we need someone from Senator Pratt district. and there are not many Chinese in this district. So I was there, and I had to write that 3-minute persuasive essay, and I'm an electrical engineer, and I write design reviews, and that 3-minute speech took me a whole day to write. It's not getting easier either. But I would say, sorry, I should have stayed home. So since I got involved last year, and the more I got involved, the more I realized that our conservative values, our constitution, and our country are under tremendous attack. And I always wanted to go back to my easy life before this, but I just can't. And I can't sit back and watch our community, our values, this great country being attacked from different directions, and we can't just sit back. And we have to stand up bravely to fight what we think is right for this country and for our community. So I really thank all of you here for supporting the community, supporting me, and supporting the Republican Party. So yeah, I'm still not good at speech, so I'm gonna get on my notes. One thing I think what I would like to do as a chair is we really need to grow our community. I talked to Chair Jennifer too. As a Republican Party, we need to get more engaged with the minority groups. It's Asian, Hispanic, and African American communities. With the St. Paul, Minneapolis areas, and also to the young people. And I think as an Asian community, there are a lot of work to do to get more people to realize really what's important. Why our Asian conservative values really lie with same as the Republican Party. A lot of people, that's what we think, we need conservatism, but we vote for the Democrats. There is nothing wrong, but we just say, I do think the Democratic Party has gone way too left at this time. So I encourage everyone here to take on more responsibilities and to volunteer in your school district, in all kinds of government levels, and also in your BPOUs. And engage and talk to your friends and spread the word. So I think being a chair is not like a leader or something, it's more like a serving person. So I do believe we lead by serving. So if you think I'm a leader with no experience, I think everybody can do it. So I do think next year we need to have more people. We need to get a bigger space for double this size. I want all of you to come back and invite your friends. And I do have I got this. So this one is like a slogan, okay? So my friends, let's join the challenge, the fight, and the party, and let the fun begin.
Congratulate her before we'll have time to excuse those who don't want to stay for the voting. I think we may have missed somebody quickly. Lisa and Klaus, did you want to speak at all about the path you have or about the work you do?
Oh, sure.
As we move forward, I'll simply say this. What she is going to talk to you about, Lisa, is extremely important to succeed in the future.
Well, thank you. I guess I wasn't thinking about speaking, but thank you very much for calling me in. So, Klaus and I, my partner and my husband back here, Klaus Wiegans, we started Right Tech PAC after we had been following what the left was doing with technology. And the more we researched, the more we found that they were beating us like crazy because of technology. Now, there's a whole bunch of reasons why they were winning, but the deeper we found, they were investing millions and millions of dollars from Barack Obama actually started one of the funds in investing it in technology companies that were building only progressive apps. And those progressive apps were to get people to do field organizing, Mobilize America, there's all kinds of them. And they were deploying them through unions, Planned Parenthood, and through the DCCC, which is the Democratic Caucus on the national level, and they were deploying them across the country. They were soliciting the help of tech people out of the Silicon Valley that were helping digitally across the country. So because Klaus and I are tech people, this is our second tech company, we decided we needed to do something to stop this, or at least help it. So we decided to start Right Tech PAC, and our purpose and our goal is very clear. We're going to develop technology and in-kind contribute to first-time candidates' technology so they can win. We are also soliciting help, and we're super excited about this. We're soliciting help from the college Republicans across the state of Minnesota. And thank you for Becky Hall. We have a meeting set up in Duluth with the Bulldogs 2 weeks from now. We've talked to St. Thomas. We've talked to the University of Minnesota. And they're super excited because we're telling them, you know what? You can do social media. You can be a digital army across the state of Minnesota and other states to help candidates win. That's what the left is doing. So we're really excited. They're on board. We're going to do some training. They're going to teach us some things. We're going to teach them some things. And we're super excited. So we have some flyers over here. Thank you for the time. I really appreciate that. And if you're running for the first time, look us up because we can in-kind contribute to technology. Thank you.
I don't know if the apps they will create can at all compete with WeChat, but I suppose they can. Anyways, for those who are not voting members, and you, as the chair said, you are free to talk in the back. You don't have to be part of this. The voting for the delegate and alternates may take some time, so we don't want to hold those who are not eligible to vote. So at this time, if you would like to get up and leave, or yes, Robert.
You're talking for State Central?
My fault. Thank you, Robert. So what is coming up? April 29th? 27th. April 27th. This affiliate group, the Asian American Republicans of Minnesota, is allowed, as are the other affiliates, 1 delegate to the State Central and 2 alternates. So that's what we'll do to conclude the meeting. But for those who can't vote or who don't want to stay around for that, as Robert, the former chair, said, and I'm sure the new chair would say this, you are free to go. But otherwise, thank all of you for coming this evening. I know we had a lot of speakers. Hopefully you appreciated them. Some went longer, some went shorter. But certainly we're thankful for all that you do as well. Thank you.